Hello and good morning. I'm Jeff Cole, and welcome to Oregon Bio's Makers and Biomarkers each week. The Zoomcast will feature a different Oregon Bio member. We'd like to thank our Oregon Bio Platinum members for making this program possible, and you can see their names listed on the screen. So this week we have as our panelists Dr. Jacques Zaneveld and Dr. Smriti Zaneveld, and they are the founders of Lazarus 3D. They founded Lazarus 3D to address an urgent need in improving surgical care today. Surgeons often learn by performing procedures on fruits, vegetables, or animal parts, none of which are anatomically similar to actual patients with complex conditions. The see one, do one, teach one paradigm in medicine has not changed for centuries. And unfortunately, the truth is that surgeons gain skills and experience on the job by operating on patients. Jacques and Smriti started tinkering with 3D printing technologies and material science in their kitchen while they were students at Baylor College of Medicine. Their conviction and hard work led to the development of Lazarus 3D's unique platform that creates replicas of patients' organs built directly from MRI CT data in soft tissue materials that surgeons use to rehearse upcoming procedures ahead of time. This precision surgery technology has already changed the way surgeons learn and has also helped save lives. It is Jacques and Smriti's mission to bring this technology to patients and doctors worldwide to improve quality of care and outcomes in surgery today. And now I'd like to welcome to our program Jacques and Smriti. Just want to say to our audience, if you have any questions at any time, please use the Q&A function that you'll see at the bottom of your control panel. And welcome, and so happy to have you both today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for this opportunity to present at Makers and Biomarkers. And we're really excited to have recently joined the community in Oregon, having moved our company here from Houston about a year ago. So I'm Dr. Jacques Zaneveld.
I'm Dr. Smriti Zaneveld. Thanks, Jeff, for the intro. And we're going to begin by talking a little bit about something everyone knows, which is experience. So I'm just going to share my screen and hopefully you can see it. Yeah. All right. So experience is something that helps us grow and improve every day. And similar to how musicians learn and are basically improving before they go to their first big concert, they play so flawlessly, and it looks like, wow, they are so incredible and they were born musician, but that's certainly not the case. With countless hours of practice and years and decades sometimes of experience, they have come so far. In surgery, that's also the case. Experience is invaluable to a physician. Nothing beats it. And unfortunately for surgeons, they learn or gain this experience by operating on patients, as you mentioned earlier. So the problem is that surgeons can't actually rehearse your surgery before it happens. They have to hope for the best when they are in the operating room with you. And that's unfortunate because sometimes unexpected things happen or mistakes happen, and that can lead to complications, which can be very unfortunate for the patient. So looking back at history in diagnostic imaging, in the late 1800s, the invention of X-ray technology was groundbreaking for the medical community globally. For the first time, it was a tool that surgeons used to diagnose their patients and actually treat them for the condition that was causing their pain or causing their symptoms. In a century later, in the late 1900s, MRI and CTs changed all of that, because now, instead of relying on single slices, images of the patient's anatomy and their condition, they were actually able to look at the 3D version of the anatomy in 2D single slices. And so that was really, really incredible because it gave surgeons a view of the patient in an unprecedented way. So fast forward to 2021, Lazarus 3D is bringing diagnostic imaging beyond these capabilities. And what our technology is capable of and what it can help surgeons achieve really is surgical perfection. How do we do that? Well, the technology itself is a platform where we can replicate the anatomy of individuals directly from their MRI or CT scan and do so in soft tissue mimicking materials. So surgeons can obtain a physical replica of that patient's anatomy and operate on it hands-on using the same tools and in the same environment with the same team as they would on the real patient. This technology was just recently FDA cleared a few weeks ago, and it will also be reimbursable through insurance. We're planning product launch in January, and we're really excited.
So Lazarus 3D is enabling an entirely new workflow. And the way it works is your physician can upload your data to Lazarus 3D servers. Those are MRI or CT scan data, which give us a full volumetric picture of what's going on in your body. We, at Lazarus 3D, we then use those to create digital models and then use our patented 3D printing-based approach to build realistic physical models. Those models are used by your surgeon to rehearse your surgery ahead of time. And like everyone knows, practice makes perfect. So if you can actually do a surgery multiple times before the real thing, you can limit the chance for errors, you can reduce complications, and we can help doctors operate with confidence. So this is an example of a practice surgery. This is not a real surgery. This is being done on a Lazarus 3D copy of a patient with breast cancer. However, you can see that Lazarus 3D models incorporate many of the features that you would expect in surgery. We can have many different types of tissues. We can have realistic bleeding. We can control the level of bonding between different tissue layers. And what that means is that practicing on a Lazarus 3D model gives a lot of insights that can help when it comes to the real surgery.
So the power of this technology is infinite in how it can change the future of surgical care. It was built off of the technology that we developed. It's patented. We have multiple patents on it. It creates an exact replica of the patient's anatomy and allows physicians to practice and rehearse their upcoming patient's case anytime and anywhere. And we're really excited, as I mentioned earlier, that it will be reimbursed through insurance. Our first FDA clearance is for all indications incorporating genitourinary conditions. Here you can see an example of the digital twin, which is the digital product that you can visualize in a virtual environment or your computer screen or even in the palm of your hands. This is a tool that surgeons are already using today to advise their patients for better patient education. And also the physical version of this digital twin is being used in the ORs at centers of excellence already to improve and change the quality of life for the patients undergoing procedures today.
And we're so happy to share the news that not only did we just receive FDA clearance, we also, one of our hospital partners just got the first reimbursement ever after using a Lazarus 3D model. So we're so happy to speak with you all today, and we'd love to open this up to a discussion.
Thank you so much. And that's really fascinating. And I have to admit, even a little mind-blowing. Seeing the animation and seeing how realistic your replicas look and behave. And I'd just like to say to everyone watching, if you do have a question, please use the Q&A function on your control panel, in your Zoom control panel. So maybe I'm a little curious in terms of how surgeons get trained today and then go into operating on patients. In a real use situation, say in a hospital, how long prior to a real surgery might surgeons use the replica?
So there were two questions there. I'm going to address the first one first, which is how are physicians currently training? And actually, the impetus to create this company was when I was on a shuttle coming back from Baylor College of Medicine. And I was talking to a resident who was going to be doing their first surgery where they were really taking the reins the next day. And we were talking about, this person was a little bit nervous about this, which is very understandable. And I was saying, well, how did you prepare? And they said, well, today I took a green bell pepper and I practiced using these laparoscopic instruments to remove the seeds from this green bell pepper. And that was my hands-on experience. So this resident said, I've spent, years and years and years studying medicine. I have all this knowledge in my head. But when it comes to actually doing it, I'm really nervous. So that made me curious. So I looked into the data, and sure enough, there's like an inverse exponential curve when it comes to complication rates. In your first surgery or your first 5 surgeries, and depending on the surgery type, up to your first 100 surgeries, you're orders of magnitude more likely to make a mistake than an experienced physician. The other major problem that we know is that even experienced physicians sometimes make mistakes, especially in very complicated cases. So what we need is a way for people to acquire skills, people to better prepare. Because if you're doing something for the first time physically, it doesn't matter how much you've thought about it. There's still that potential for an error.
Yeah, exactly. And the second question was, how long ahead of time would they rehearse? And so the answer to that is, it really depends on their flexibility and their schedule. Typically, these surgeries are scheduled 2 to 3 weeks at minimum in advance. And Lazarus 3D can provide, the replica, the digital twin actually within 48 hours and the physical model within a week's time. So once they have it, like I'm going to show you one example. Once they have the physical model in their office, they're able to schedule it, early, ahead of time, weeks ahead of time, or even do it the same day before the real patient surgery. So here's an example of what the physical model looks like. This is actually the physical model of the digital twin that I showed you earlier. And you can see the blood vessels, and then basically the tissue, it's quite soft and realistic in terms of how it behaves when physicians are operating on it. And then there's also blood vasculature, and we can make these models bleed if that's relevant to potential complications associated with the procedure.
That's fantastic. We have some questions from our attendees today. The first one is, and I'll kind of combine these first two, what materials are used to print the patient's anatomy, and how is patient bleeding simulated?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a wide range of different materials that we can use. And it's important to get those materials to behave as close as possible to real tissue for the types of activities that are going to be performed with it. The same materials don't work for everything. So the one that was in the video, that was a silicone-based model, and that's really good for things like sharp dissection, for example, cutting open a piece of tissue, pulling out a tumor like you saw in that video. We also have a range of hydrogel-based materials, which you can use for things like laser enucleation. We just did a test with Cornell the other day, and we're able to validate a new set of materials that work extremely well with monopolar and bipolar energy. So we have a really wide range of materials that we can use, and Lazarus 3D's patented printing approach, what's sort of going on in the background that makes this so powerful, is that we can relatively quickly and easily get online whole new categories of materials that no one had before been able to rapidly prototype with.
Yeah, and the second question was, how is patient bleeding simulated? And so the answer to that is really, if there's vasculature feeding into the tumor or close to the pathology of the tissue, there are typically branches from the heart going out to the rest of our body. So, for example, the renal artery and the renal vein are very close to the hilar region of the kidney that provide oxygen and nutrients. So if a tumor was in close proximity to those blood vessels, basically we infuse and perfuse those renal arteries and veins that we are creating synthetically, such that they're pressurized. And if a physician was to nick it or cut into it accidentally, it would bleed. And so you would be able to capture that sort of accidental, unintended consequence of cutting something that you were not supposed to cut into.
And that's huge, of course. So I have another question from the attendees. What level of complexity can Lazarus currently replicate? For example, the current capacity suitable for hard tumors or necrotic tissue, veins, capillaries, super small. And, talk perhaps about your enterprise's future in addressing those things.
Yeah, absolutely. The limit on the complexity that we can build is actually not based on our capabilities. It's based on the input data. So in our FDA tests that were submitted and vetted and approved, we were able to demonstrate that we have sub-millimeter accuracies, and we easily exceed the best scanning data that's typically available for a patient. So what could theoretically happen in the future is doctors may begin more regularly ordering more advanced types of scanning technology so that they could keep up with our 3D printing technology. But right now, the limit is the scan itself. And typically, we rarely get scans that are more accurate than 1 millimeter slices on sort of a Z stack.
Great. One thing I'm curious about, you just gained recently FDA approval for this amazing technology that you've brought to the market. And, sometimes an FDA approval is for a medical device that a patient will use directly. Sometimes it's for, a pharma-related product that's ingested or otherwise taken. Here is kind of a unique niche. Was there any differences in your approach to getting FDA approval versus maybe some more traditional products?
Yeah, so we were really excited to work with the FDA. We had an incredible team there, and our product is considered a diagnostic medical device. So based off of guidance that came out of the FDA in 2018, if you are building models that are intended for a surgeon to use them to make decisions, so if they're going to contribute to patient management, that is considered a diagnostic medical device. We do have some unique opportunities here in that our products are extremely customized to every patient. So you can think of it similar to the types of quality systems, the types of procedural checks that you need when building customized implants or customized prosthetics. All of these types of devices, like our medical device, are customized to the patient. That means that we have to have a very well-vetted process. And really, the process is where you focus your time and energy from a quality and regulatory standpoint to make sure that it's going to go smoothly for every single case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would compare it to Stryker making custom stents or even guides for patient-specific procedures. It's not sort of like what they have done traditionally, which is you have A to Z, and then you basically try A, and if it didn't work, then you try B, and you keep going till you find the right one. This the custom implants that Stryker makes is really tailored to that patient's anatomy. So that is a great example of sort of our regulatory path, because although Lazarus 3D models do not go inside the patient, so there is a lower risk to the patient. They're never really directly in contact with the models. It still is a regulated product because physicians are really relying on it in adjunct to looking at the MRI and CT and using it as an equivalent sort of to assess their strategy.
Cool. One thing I was curious about, you mentioned earlier, of course, healthcare depends on insurance, right? That's the backbone of keeping the financing going in healthcare. And you've gotten reinsurance, insurance reimbursement set up. How did that process go for you? And do insurers see an upside to actually covering this cost in terms of reduced costs in the long term?
Yeah, I think that the first piece of the puzzle was that the only way to get something reimbursed through insurance is that it is labeled as a medical device. So fortunately for us, the FDA recognized that early on and basically published that in an announcement and a letter to the public. So that was really a key, kind of foundation for how we are able to have this reimbursement structure today. So in order for the reimbursement process to happen and be successful, usually medical device companies lobby various societies and organizations and governmental agencies for a long time, for years or even decades, before they can get that those codes issued. So in our case, I think the medical community at large, like leaders and centers of excellence, were already demanding that this become a standard of care. And so they work together with the FDA, I think the CDC, the AMA, the American Medical Association, as well as so many medical societies. Physicians were involved, industry was involved, and everyone was just really this needs to happen. And so that push drove the American Medical Association to issue the codes. They're category 3 codes, which means that they're sort of in this emerging tech category of a new medical device where they're still going to rely on data to make it a standard of care, but we're on that path already.
And that's what that means is that insurers can opt in to cover Lazarus technology, which is incredibly powerful. And we've been so privileged to be working with insurance providers that, like you say, see a lot of benefits from our technology. Fundamentally, what insurers are looking at are ways to limit liability. And it's well known, for example, if we take airline travel as an example, when the government mandated simulation-based training for commercial pilots, the frequency of fatal crashes dropped by 90% within a decade. So when we are able to speak with insurance providers, we can make the argument we are working with top centers of excellence through centers of excellence programs. We have top physicians in the country that really want and need this technology. So work with us. Let's try it out. Let's get it in use in patients, and let's track exactly what occurs as far as outcomes. So that's the stage we're at for our January 2022 launch. And then our plan is to take that data and use it to expand this program across the country. At the same time, we're seeking FDA clearance for 6 additional broad categories of indications. So by 2023, we intend on being FDA cleared to use Lazarus 3D's PRE-sure technology for essentially every type of surgery that is performed across the entire US.
Well, that's fantastic. And we are now just about out of time. It's gone by really fast. And it's been an absolute pleasure having both of you talk about Lazarus 3D, your amazing new technology, and your plans going forward. And I know we're going to be hearing a lot more about your company in the near and long term. And so, again, thanks for joining us today. Thanks to everyone out there for signing up for this webinar and joining us. We're going to sign off now. A great day to everyone. Thank you so much.